garden. Today I've got a summer greenhouse update for you. We've moved all of our cold weather crops out in the garden, so we're now just left with our warm weather crops like peppers and tomatoes. These tomato seedlings are the second round that I planted. I just wanted to get a whole bunch more as kind of a backup, but my main plants are right down here. You can see they're getting pretty large, so I'm going to start transplanting them out in the garden. Some of them have more than one plant, and I'll be splitting those up very gently, and then what I like to do is plant them extremely deep, so I'll bury all of this stem, and they can grow roots all along that stem. We're getting to the point where the plants outdoors are going to start to do better than the plants in the greenhouse. That's just because we're getting more sun, the nighttime temps are getting a lot warmer, whereas earlier in spring, these would benefit so much by the greenhouse effect, which traps in the heat. It gets incredibly warm during the day, which was great for germinating the seeds and kind of tricking them into thinking it's summer, and the warmer nights prevented them from going dormant. If it's too cold, they're not going to grow very fast. And that's true for peppers and tomatoes. I brought out the basil that I was growing indoors. Got a couple more jalapenos back here. Under those, we've got some lettuce. Man, look at all this. And this has grown a lot in the past couple weeks. This is ready to harvest. I mean, that would be delightful on a sandwich. That's a big piece of lettuce. It's not really as crispy as romaine, but these are great for sandwiches. I saved just about every seed from our jalapenos last year, so I planted out a whole bunch of extras as a backup. Over here is my seed mixture experiment, and I've been weeding this out and eating these as microgreens. There's a lot of dill and parsley and broccoli, and I want to weed out the broccoli because it's a little bit too big. I think I added too many broccoli seeds. In the back here, I think that is a cucumber, but it might also be a squash or a pumpkin. I'm not really sure. Over here we have some cucumbers, and I've already planted a few of these out in the garden, but these two might need to be split up. They're a little close together. The safest thing to do would actually be to just cut one of these back. So I'd probably just take this one and just snip the stem, but I might try and split them up. And all these veggies are on the sunniest side of the greenhouse. Over here on the shadier side, I have more wildflowers. This is some lavender that I grew inside over winter, and I planted these out from seed. So I'll be splitting these up and filling in the gaps in our row of lavender out front. Our marigold seeds are starting to sprout, so I'll be transplanting these as soon as we see the first true leaves. Then we have a bunch of little pots of wildflowers, so I'll be transplanting these out into the garden. Down here we have more wildflower mixes. This one didn't sprout very well, so I'm just going to replant it with other seeds. Then down here we have another one of our vegetable mixes, and this one's a lot better. There's not as much broccoli, so you can see the dill, you can see more of the parsley, so this is a lot closer to what I want. And right next to that is an entire container planted out with daisies. And look at all these sprouts. So these I'm just going to dot around the garden in sunny patches. I'm going to start bringing some of these plants out into the garden, like the basil, the cucumbers, even some of my tomatoes. I'm going to start planting them out because we've got a beautiful stretch of weather. Bringing these outside for just a couple hours even is going to give them full sun and sturdy them up a bit with some wind. The leaves on the trees are starting to fill in, so we're getting a little bit more shade. So here they all are. I think this one might be a little vulnerable to wind, so I'm going to turn it so it can kind of lean on those chives for support. But the ones in these containers will be fine in here until they get about 2, maybe 2.5 feet tall. I might want to split these ones up before they get that big, just so the roots don't entangle too much. But the ones that are by themselves are fine to stay. Same thing with the peppers. I could split them up now, but the ones that are just single peppers or just a couple, I can just leave those until they're about 1 foot tall. These tomatoes can stay in here for a little bit longer, but pretty soon they're going to need to be up potted or transplanted directly in the garden. If you see your sprouts starting to wilt, you can bottom water them if you think the soil looks a little dry, or simply bring them back into the shade. I'll plant out a few of these little sprouts today just to show you how I like to do that. Just push up on the bottom until you free that soil. Then we can just nestle in around the seedling to support the soil. It should pop right out. I'm actually only after the largest plant, so I'm just going to pull this one. And what I like to do is plant extremely deep. So we're going to dig down until just the leaves are poking out of the soil. So you'll see as we backfill in around, we've buried about 2 inches of that stem. This is the same exact method I do if I'm up potting or transplanting them out into the garden. I'm going to very gently water this in by pouring water around the plant, not directly on it. You want to water it in as soon as you can, and if you can plant these out on a cloudy day, that's great. If you can do this on a rainy day, that's even better. But if it's really bright like it is today, I actually like to cover my plant with some leaves. And you can use anything, but just giving it a little shade is going to prevent it from wilting. This transplanting process can be really hard on a new plant, so this is a great way to kind of ease it into the garden. If this were even taller, we could plant it even deeper. We would just want to remove any leaves that are under the soil. I'm going to dig down fairly deep. Basically going to dig within a few inches of the bottom. From here, we're going to cut back any leaves that are going to be under the soil. So we're left with 3 really nice big leaves here and a few more on the way. We're just going to remove these. And then you'll see as we backfill it around, and we've got a little bit of extra room, so I'm going to top this up with some compost as soon as I sift some more. And just like our seedling, I'm going to water in around it, not on it. So burying it really deep actually does a lot of things. It promotes the roots to grow down to the very bottom. It's going to be nice and cool down there for those hot summer days, and there's going to be moisture down there basically all the time. It also anchors them so that they're not flopping around in the wind. And by removing those bottom leaves, they're not going to rot underneath the soil, and when it rains, they're not going to droop down and touch the soil, which is where that blight can spread. So now if we want to acclimate this a little bit and just give it a break from the sun, we can just cover it with a pot. I'll have a more detailed tutorial once I plant out all these tomatoes. This entire side of the greenhouse is now basically in shade. There's one little corner of sun where the lettuce is, but that's pretty much it. And it's like this for a few hours every day. So I'm going to start using this time to take them out into the proper garden. I want to keep an eye on those nighttime temperatures. If they ever risk getting below 50, I'm probably going to take them back into the greenhouse. Tomatoes will turn purple if they're too cold, and both tomatoes and peppers will virtually stop growing if it's too chilly. But they can start to stay out for the night. I hope hope you all enjoyed this summer vegetable greenhouse tour. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.